The village of Alderwood nestled deep within whispering valleys, a place where the wind wasn't just air moving. It was a living storyteller for generations. Its sighs through the ancient trees carried secrets, warnings, and comforting murmurs. The eldest among them, Elara, possessed skin like crumpled parchment and eyes that held the deep gray of gathering storms. She understood the wind's language better than any soul alive, deciphering its complex melodies long before others even sensed a breeze. Children would gather at her doorstep, wide-eyed, as she translated the wind's tales of distant mountains or forgotten meadows. Her voice as soft and rhythmic as the rustling leaves themselves. The wind was her constant companion, a confidant in her solitary cottage perched on the highest hill, where the air danced most freely. Lately, however, a quiet sorrow had settled over Elara, as persistent as the autumn fog clinging to the valley floor. A weariness had seeped into her bones, deeper than the usual aches of age. She felt the wind changing, carrying a different tune, a softer, more poignant melody that spoke of endings rather than journeys. Her greatest fear wasn't death itself, but the thought that the wind's most profound secrets, whispered only to her over decades, might vanish like morning mist when she was gone. Who would listen with such patience? Who would understand the subtle shift from a warning shoosh to a comforting whir? The village relied on her interpretations, and the wind deserved a worthy listener. This secret burden grew heavier with each passing, breathless day. Her greatest solace came from her young granddaughter, Lily, a girl of 10 whose spirit seemed spun from sunlight and curiosity. Lily adored Elara, spending hours beside her on the worn wooden bench outside the cottage, simply listening. She didn't always grasp the complexities of the wind's language yet, but she felt its essence, its joy, its sorrow, its restless energy. Lily sensed the change in her grandmother too. The way Elara's gaze lingered longer on the swaying treetops, the deeper sighs that escaped her lips. Grandmother, Lily asked one crisp afternoon, the wind playfully tugging at her braids, does the wind ever get tired, like you sometimes seem? The question, innocent yet piercing, struck Elara's heart. A profound tenderness washed over Elara as she looked at Lily's earnest face. It was time. The wind's current secret, the one it had been murmuring only to her, wasn't meant to be hoarded. It was meant to be passed on, like a precious heirloom. Taking Lily's small hand in her own weathered one, Elara spoke softly, her voice blending with the breeze. Lily, my dear heart, she began, the wind has shared its last great secret with me. It isn't about storms or distant lands. It's about listening, truly listening, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. It's about hearing the love carried in its gentlest sigh. She explained how the wind wasn't merely air, but a keeper of memories, emotions, and the very breath of those who had loved the valley. Elara guided Lily to the oldest oak at the hill's crest, its branches etched against the twilight sky like gnarled fingers. Place your hands here, child, she instructed, guiding Lily's palms flat against the rough, cool bark. Close your eyes. Don't listen for the wind, listen to it. Feel its path over your skin, through your hair. Hear the spaces between the gusts. Lily obeyed, shutting her eyes tightly. At first she felt the familiar push against her cheeks, heard the rustle above. Then, slowly, something shifted beneath the sound. She sensed a vibration, a resonance deep within the tree and flowing through her own fingertips. It wasn't a word, but a feeling, warmth, comfort, an ancient, patient presence. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Grandmother, I feel it. Days turned into weeks, and Lily practiced daily at the old oak. Elara watched, a fragile peace settling over her own heart, as the girl's initial concentration blossomed into a quiet communion. One evening, as the setting sun painted the sky in fiery hues, a strangely warm and gentle breeze, unlike any seasonal wind, swept up the hill. It swirled around the cottage, carrying the scent of wildflowers long gone and the faint, sweet echo of a lullaby Elara's own mother used to sing. Lily, standing by the oak, felt it envelop her. Tears welled in her eyes as she instinctively knew this wind carried the essence of love itself, a tangible embrace from the valley's past. She looked towards the cottage window and saw Elara watching, a serene smile gracing her tired face. Tears tracing paths down her own cheeks. Alara passed peacefully in her sleep that very night. As quietly as a falling leaf the village mourned. The wind sighing a low, mournful dirge through the alder trees, but Lily, though her heart ached with loss, carried a different feeling deep within. Standing by the ancient oak the next morning, she closed her eyes and placed her hands on the bark. The wind stirred, brushing against her tear-stained cheek, and within its gentle caress, Lily didn't just hear the rustling leaves. She felt the distinct, comforting presence of her grandmother. A warmth, a familiar sense of peace, a whisper of love carried on the breeze. It wasn't goodbye. It was Alara's spirit, woven into the wind's eternal song. She finally understood the last secret. Love, once given, never truly leaves. It simply finds a new way to embrace you. Carried forever on the breath of the world. Lily smiled through her tears, knowing she was now the listener, the keeper, forever connected to Alara and the whispering heart of Alderwood. The wind had a new voice, tender and wise, ready to share its stories for generations yet to come.